Hello and welcome to the Comics Pals. It is Saturday morning. You know what that means. It's the start of March.
You
This
haven't
is
done one of those openings in a while, Sean.
yeah. It's God's month or God's hour, 10:15 a.m.
This month, yeah, dude got too much already. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen. If you buy in, he got it all, right?
It's true.
That's the
It's
idea.
true.
So
I gotta tell you, that's been my struggle lately. I'm not saying I want all of it. I need a little.
The only time I'm buying is when the turbulence starts going on the flight. It's
oh my god.
What's that
atheism goes right out the door.
Everybody's a Christian.
You know what? I guess so. I guess like if it was the end for me, my final moments, I might.
It's a human thing.
What's it hurt?
Exactly. Like
your ego.
Does it really matter now whether I'm right or wrong? Like, let me just err on the side of caution with this one.
Is that what religion is? Just erring on the side of caution?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yes, I say as the non-religious one. That's absolutely what it is. Whoa! I just opened YouTube. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Hope you guys enjoyed today. We have, first of all, 3 out of 4 pals
on episode 333. I don't know if you noticed.
Yes. Okay, so that's good. I didn't even catch that.
We're halfway to hell.
Some of us closer than half.
What the fuck does that mean?
It means, hey, Marco. I'm just kidding.
Fair. Speaking of turbulence.
No, oh my God. Godspeed. Marco is on his way back to good old US of A, so he will not be joining us today. But of course, we do have Kale.
What's up, hot dogs?
Tyler's here.
Dip. Well,
I don't even know what I just heard. And I'm Sean. Okay, well, yeah, I guess that's what matters. I get the wrestling jokes. Kale gets the random like noises.
Mm-hmm. Sean's not a Sha-Na-Na fan, apparently, so it's fine.
What did you just say?
Sha-Na-Na? Not a big fan of Sha-Na-Na? Never mind.
It's a
different podcast bit. We don't need to. Yeah.
By the way, if you're watching live, hit that like button. Make sure to, do that bump. Hit the follow button if you're watching on Twitch. We've got a big show for you guys. There's not a lot of comics news to talk about necessarily. This was a light week in the industry. I think we're on cool down. We had Comics Pro last week, so I think a lot of internationals are settling back in. And the news this week, not too much to it. We're going to be talking the return of a would you guys say cult hit, or would you rise it above cult hit? Battle Chasers.
The fact that it's a friend of the show, Matthew Murphy, favorite, it's a cult.
Gotta be a cult.
Yeah. I would have said that, but then the legions of random Battle Chasers fans who've been waiting for this announcement for 20 plus years come out the woodwork and say, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah, when you're in a cult, it's never a cult.
That's true. Because everyone around you is also in it. So to you, it is what it is. It's normal. So we're going to be talking about the return of Battle Chasers, if you can believe that. I can hardly believe it. We're going to be talking about Marvel launching a new imprint, which is almost equally as shocking.
It is, yeah.
Is it?
I think so. We'll get to
almost.
Okay. All right.
And in our main topic today, which is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, I cannot wait to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about one of the most interesting pieces of lost media, if you will, of all time in comics. Arguably the greatest superhero story never told. We're going to be talking about Alan Moore's Twilight of the superheroes in our main topic today. Think 5G. That's how we're going to be breaking it down. Think 5G. So stay tuned for that.
Where's my, hold on.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I think I do.
5G and all the studies, LA Times, causes massive mutation and cancer.
That sounded like the opening to Twin Peaks.
Oh, Twin Peaks music is great.
I wasn't sure what exactly that was at first, but then once I heard the voice of Alex Jones, that felt secure.
Yeah.
It's the animated Batman animated series theme. That's what it is.
Well,
Is that what that was?
I
couldn't hear it.
We can't hear it. Yeah, we can't
Yeah.
hear it as well as the listeners hopefully can. But yeah. So, as I mentioned, big stuff to talk about. And right up front, I don't want to waste anybody's time. We promised last week on the show, we promised a major announcement.
Quit. There it is.
And
We're done.
Yep, just a toy show now.
listen, actually, it'd be fun. That could be fun if you want. And apparently, people watch that stuff.
Yeah.
Tyler's been posting toy reviews, and people are enjoying it.
Even between the three of us, we could do it easy.
I think so. We probably each have a deep history with action figures. If you will.
I say toy show because Marco will get his own separate type of show with toys. Yeah.
All right.
For the OnlyFans.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. How's everybody doing this morning, by the way? Hopefully everybody's doing all right. Got your cup of Joe, your cup of kale.
Oh,
I have
your Comics Pals cup.
This cup of Joe here.
Yeah. Tyler and I drinking from our Comics Pals cups. Tyler, what you sipping on?
Fofos. Oh no, that's tipping on. Never mind. That I knew you were drinking too. I'm not drinking anything in my mug right now. It's cold enough that I'm drinking iced coffee, so that's what I'm drinking.
Basically, it's a stunt mug.
Stunt mug, yeah.
Unbelievable. But that's not actually the announcement. We'll save that for a moment. We'll talk more about our mugs a little later. But as I said, we do have a major announcement to make. And one thing that we don't do on this show is we don't do the hyperboles. All right? No. If we say there's an announcement, all right?
Okay. Yeah.
We guarantee that it will be big. And so to help us make the announcement, Tyler, take it away.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
I see something.
Geoff Johns is coming back. There we go, Sean.
There it is. There it is. The return of Geoff Johns.
Ooh, we should have thought about that a little. The first question we got, not an April Fool's joke, right?
It is. I knew that would happen. That's just the timing of it.
Yeah.
It is not an April Fool's joke. It's not an alarm. This is real. Geoff Johns will be returning to the Comics Pals Saturday, April 1st.
Or if you read my writing, April 1st, I'll fix that. I just realized that as it slowly just ran into my face. So.
April 1st.
And it will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendars now for that change in time. We're going to at 1 p.m. Eastern on April 1st to accommodate Geoff Johns, who does the show from L.A. So he shouldn't be having to wake up at 6 a.m. to do the Comics Pals.
Yep. I mean, neither should I, but here we are.
Geoff Johns got up at 6 a.m. to do the Comics Pals.
I think he got up earlier. The dude had to go all the way to the studios.
Right. Yeah. Like, he probably doesn't even wake up at that time to, I don't know, take his kids to school. But he showed up here for us. And he's doing it again April 1st. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. Obviously, if you heard our first interview with Geoff Johns, then you know that it was jam-packed. We had so many questions. You all had so many questions. And Geoff gave us his time. He was very gracious. And we're excited to do it again. But we're going to do it a little differently this time. Because that's not the only thing that's going to be happening that day. No. We have the Geoff Johns Geiger giveaway.
Ooh, alliteration.
Yes, I love alliteration. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
I love alliteration.
Oh God. So we're gonna be doing a giveaway, and what we're gonna give away is a physical copy of Geiger, Geoff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brad Anderson's Geiger. And this is the way that it's going to work. It's going to be very simple. The giveaway is going to last from today, the 4th of March, to the 31st of March. So you got a lot of time. You got basically the whole month of March to enter. Here are the rules, and here are the requirements. 1, you have to be subscribed to the Comics Pals on YouTube, and you got to be a follower on Twitch. Both of those things are free to do. We are not asking you to subscribe to us on Twitch for money. Just the free follow will do. Of course, if you wanted to subscribe, you could even do that with your Amazon Prime, your Twitch Prime. That suffices. Patrons will get 2 additional entries. If you enter as a patron, and we know you're on our Patreon page, that will count for 2 additional entries. Send in a question or comment for Geoff Johns. The best way to reach us for this is by email, thecomicspals@gmail.com.
Yeah.
But a Twitter DM will do. Hitting us up on Discord. The comments of the YouTube section will do. All that works.
We keep track of all of it.
Yes, we will keep track of all that. We're going to add the name of every single commenter who is also a YouTube subscriber or a Twitch follower into a randomizer. The day of the interview, we will announce the winner live. The winner has to reach out to us to confirm, and we will get a copy of the Geiger trade sent their way. That's it. That's all you have to do. Very simple.
That's not
You don't
so
have
hard.
to. Yeah. You don't even have to have the best question. Frankly, your question might not even get read. That's not the point.
What is the best question?
Well, the
Most
best
visually
question is the
appealing
one I
question.
ask.
The best question is, can Geoff Johns facilitate me getting 5 minutes with Feige? That's the best question. The best
guys,
answer is yes.
I will post all these rules on the Twitter and Discord and all that stuff, just so you have it. Yeah.
Absolutely. You guys
Will this be US only?
Yeah. I think
it probably has to be.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that because I was figuring we would just order the book and send it to them directly, in which case that might not be so bad. So I think it's probably fine if people that aren't in the US enter. But I do want to double think that. I think it should be okay though.
We'll put that in the final rules.
Yeah. So that's what we got going on. I'm super, super, super excited. The Geoff Johns interview is one of my favorite moments, certainly in the show's history, and a genuine highlight of my life. So can't wait to do it again. And from now, you don't have to enter today. Entering first doesn't increase your chances. The only thing that increases your chances of winning is being a member of Patreon. So think about your question. Think about what you want to say to Geoff Johns. We're obviously only going to actually ask the most, first of all, the appropriate questions. So, be respectful. We're also going to ask the questions that we think are compelling, that Johns probably doesn't hear all the time, and that, tie into what we're getting at. So we want your voice to be heard. We want our voice to be heard. So get those questions in and do it on or before the 31st of March to make sure that you actually are eligible. But other than that, Have at it. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Can't wait.
And
The other-
Junkyard
yeah, go
Joe
ahead.
will be done by then too. So
Yep.
full on retrospect. That'll be cool.
I was wishing, like, obviously that's not going to happen, but I wish the Junkyard Joe trade was out by that
June,
point.
dude. I looked.
Oh, yeah.
It's solicited for June. Birthday gift for us. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Dan says, I'm so happy he enjoyed the last conversation so much he wanted to come back. Clearly, like the rest of us here, he realized you guys are the best game in town. Thank you so much for saying that. That really means a lot. And you know what? I don't feel weird about saying that from what we were aware of, and of course the fact that he's coming back, Jeff did have a good time.
Yeah.
If you followed along, then you know that Geoff Johns doesn't really do many interviews at all. And up until that point, I think we were the only interview that he had done, at least that I could find on YouTube, in at least a year, but it might have been more. And
Yeah, that was video for sure. I think he's done
Yeah.
some like written stuff for like CBR and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Like
I should clarify, like the longer form podcast type of thing like this. And then of course there would be a couple of interviews that would come out with other groups, but certainly no one, like I think what are they called? Word Balloon? Johnson Tourists.
Yeah.
But it was groups like that are larger and have more roots in the industry. So the fact that Jeff makes this a stop, and it's not even a stop on a press tour, it's just, hey, you want to do the show? Oh yeah, great, let's do it. So very, very excited about that. It's going to be cool. But that's not all. We've got other stuff. We got other stuff to talk to you guys about, as always. Do want to let you guys know how you can find and support the show. Patreon.com/thecomicspals is the absolute best way to do that. For as little as $3 a month, you can support your boys, get access to some pretty cool content. We've got a newsletter that we post every single week, one from one of us every week. Marco put his out, and he's not even here. So Marco getting the work done on vacation.
Somehow.
Somehow.
I
We'll
was
talk about that.
I was impressed, honestly.
Yeah.
Me too.
I
was
done
like, you said what?
I would have forgotten. Something would have happened. The time dilation, I don't know. Something would have happened. He was very prompt.
Tyler, you're not giving yourself credit. You would have had something prepared in advance.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right about that. Right, you could time
I
post.
like to think we all would have.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
we all would have had a different approach. My approach would be to not do anything the very, very day that I have to leave, and then write the newsletter right before I have to leave. Tyler would make sure it was done in advance. Kale would just get it done. It wouldn't really matter what it meant. He would just get it done.
Kale
and
wouldn't
Marco
leave.
would just do it while he was gone.
Yeah, Kale wouldn't leave. That's the thing.
Kale would leave.
It's a combination of I would either just straight up leave the show because I have to do it, or I would just not do it.
Well, we all have our different style. So hang out with us on Patreon. We've got the newsletter. You can vote in the book club poll. We got the Twitter poll on Twitter for Pals polls, but we've got the book club poll over on Patreon. The winner last month's poll was Strange Adventures, which means that this Tuesday, the 7th of March, you can listen to our Strange Adventures book club. We had a lot of fun. I think a great conversation about the book. I thought a revealing conversation even. So head on over to wherever it is you like to listen to us on March 7th. It's out now if you're on our Patreon page.
Yep.
And check it out. That'll listen. And read the book.
I agree.
Read the book.
Tom King books got me acting strange. So
It got me acting strange. I almost wish we had done the book club after we finished Human Target, because I definitely feel like Strange Adventures colored my opinion of Human Target.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a kind of a serendipitous thing that those two things lined up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel that way.
And then on Tuesday, Sean, the next poll will be up for the next book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. We will have that up for you guys if you want to vote on Tuesday.
Rock the vote.
The
Pokemon go to the polls.
Chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Is that a real slogan, Kale, or
Hillary Clinton said that. You
Yeah.
don't remember?
no?
2016, yeah.
Yep.
Pokemon go to the polls.
That's a loss
That's
for the election.
That is embarrassing. Wow. That's bad news. Had I known that, I might have made different decisions that year. Just kidding.
I would hope not.
Don't want to even put that out there. It's just a joke. The other thing you get is your name, a superhero nickname or supervillain nickname, and a shout out on the show. So we do want to say thank you to these fine folks. Thunderstruck Rebecca Alejandro, the Night Stalker Harris Nijinsky, Brian Demolisher Del Pozo, Random Rocio, Kefis the Incorruptible, the Great Destroyer Hyper Viper 89, Momentum Mike Elliott, Starcross Catherine Stars, the Hound of Justice Atomic Hound, Dan the Truth Trudeau, and Joel Justice. Thank you all so much for being tremendous supporters of the Comics Pals.
Joel Justice sounds like a very, very early WWE, like WWF Raw, like act, you know?
Yeah,
Joel
that's
Justice
true.
versus the 1-2-3 Kid, you know?
Versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, no, that would never happen. That would never happen. Stone Cold will facing bums. Not that Joel Justice would be a bum, but or not that the real Joel Justice is a bum. Just the one that would appear on Raw would be, because
I don't think so. I think
No?
this would be like Ultimate Warrior style thing. I think it'd be
Oh,
super gimmicky sort of thing, you know?
You might be right about that. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. So yeah. The other thing I wanted to let me get through the plugs before I move on. Twitch and YouTube live every single Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern for this very show. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern for Pals Pulls. That is our comics review show. This week we did review the aforementioned Human Target. We also talked about the listener pick winner, I Am Iron Man #1, which was one of the most interesting books that I have read this year. Although I'm not sure how I feel about the actual quality of it overall. But we read that in an assortment of other things. Definitely head on over to Twitter if you want to vote in the listener poll. And join our Discord server. Everything else at the Comics Pals on social media. And I wanted to give Tyler a moment to plug the toy reviews.
Oh yeah,
I did
one for the Extremis Iron Man that went out. And also Hasbro put out a fan stream that I did reactions for. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff announced there. There will be one for the Orb coming out on Monday. So if you want to know what I think about this guy.
Oh, that's fun.
for
I
sure.
love that you have that figure.
Orb.
I talk about that. Yeah, I talk about
That's so cool. We wanted to tell you guys something else. So you've probably seen on the show at some point or another one of us with a Comics Pals cup or a T-shirt like I happen to be wearing right now. There's no planning, of course. I just happen to be wearing this.
Oh yeah,
No planning, of course.
Yeah,
Not today of all days.
We have these things, but we never really talk about how you can have these things. And we've made some back-end changes to where we are very comfortable announcing once again, talking about our merch store.
Our new merch store.
Our brand new merch store. Our new and improved merch store. And I just wanted to quickly talk about some of the stuff that you can get because it's interesting. So
Guys, I had control over it. I'm sorry.
yeah, Tyler had control, which means that it is very odd. There isn't so of course you have your typical like t-shirt, you've got your hat, what's referred to as a dad hat, and I think anyone can imagine what a dad hat looks like.
If you're watching YouTube right now, you can see what a dad hat looks like.
True. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Matt, friend of the show, Matt Murphy should get one.
A dad hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? We've got our shirt in tie dye. We've got a bomber jacket that looks cool as heck. We've got shorts. We've got stickers that are our logos from our main logo, and then our logo from our individual newsletters over on Patreon. We've got what is referred to as a fun towel. I have no idea why you would. Well, I guess if you go to the beach, you have fun. You want a towel, so that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it has the words wank, jizz, and
Jesus.
You
My
didn't
joke
catch
is
that,
gonna be
Sean?
slightly more tasteful than that, but
It has onomatopoeias from comic books on it that are all fun.
Wow. So
Just say it rhymes with another word that I did not want to put in the title of the towel.
If you want the Comics Pals on your fridge with a magnet, if you want us in your cup, if you want us on your bra, you can get Marco's sports bra. If you want us on your feet, you can get Tyler's socks.
Yeah, C.W. Gordon called that one. Yeah.
So we have a lot of stuff that we are offering. We don't make. It's not like we're gonna make a ton of money off a sale of this. We just thought it would be pretty cool for those of you who might want, some Comics Pals merch in your home. So head on over to the store.
I'm gonna put it in the chat now in a second.
Put it in the chat. There will be a link to it in the description of however you're listening to this. So give it a look. It's fun stuff. It's a good time.
gotta get me a Marco bra.
One Marco on each nip. There you go.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The things that go on around here. I can't even keep up. All of a sudden, Marco's face is on a bra. Imagine that. Go figure. So let's
And that's not even in the store.
let's get into the listener comments. We've got quite a few. You guys have been active, and we've been busy around here, so we haven't had a ton of time on the main show to get to them, but we do want to highlight your guys' thoughts from the last couple of weeks. Some of these are coming from YouTube, some of them are coming from Discord, so you will definitely recognize the names. But Tyler, take it away.
Yeah, once I remember where I put them. Okay, here we go. So Dan Trudeau, hold on, I gotta get my mouth ready for this one. Whoop, don't quote me on that one. Dan Trudeau, I don't know you like that, but Dan said, the Dan Didio conversation was great. He really has the problems pegged, but clearly wasn't the guy to overcome them. His attempts to break out of the current structure seemed more desperate and ill thought out as time went on. I guess I understand it better now, given the pressure he was under to keep sales moving up in a shrinking market. I also like that you guys brought up the fact that comics as a whole are doing just fine. It's just that the growth is in children's young adult graphic novels and manga. I will say DC is trying with their young adult books, though I haven't been able to find any data on how successful they really are. The big question is this: how do you create a bridge from reading those to DC's mainline books? I haven't seen anything to indicate they're anywhere near an answer to that.
Great question and comment. Thank you, Dan. Ever present Dan Trudeau. Look, I think that being the editor-in-chief or being the publisher or the person in the chair for a big two comics publisher is probably very hard, especially at DC. In my mind, DC has less wiggle room in terms of what they can do in their books than Marvel does. I don't actually know if that's true or not, but for some reason, I have that perception. And DC has tried a lot of things over the last 20 or so years. And we talked about that a lot while we were discussing the Dan Didio interview that I still think people should go and check out. And we clearly know that a lot of that was trying to tap in to the market that Dan Didio feels was lost, which was the market of people who, are the young fans, the young audiences, who are the lost generations of comics that Dan was trying to court. And then also fans who don't necessarily want superhero comics, but they want to read comics that neither Marvel or DC have been serving for the last 40 years, 40 or more years. That's a tough, tall order. And maybe it does come across as desperate. But I do think that Dan had a desperate position. Make DC appealing and attractive, not to audiences, but to bigwigs, which is a different situation. You know, the bigwig at Warner doesn't care about the idea that, you know, the industry might have lost a certain group of people along the way. They only care about how many comics you're selling. And the best way to sell comics, I don't care what company you work for, the best way to sell comics is to have Batman on your comic book, or I guess Spider-Man. So what are you supposed to do? It's not an enviable position. It's very difficult.
You're right, though, that I do feel like DC has always had a little more corporate fingers in the soup. That's not an expression. But like, whereas Marvel, it should be an expression, I think. Marvel always kind of feels like it's on its own island. Like Marvel Comics is kind of always just doing its thing. To its detriment, I feel, because it never really feels like a part of something. But DC, there's always something going on, whether it's like a giant move that just disrupts the whole publishing line. I think Sean saw MODOK in the image there.
That's so funny. For those of you who are audio only, every single time we do listener comments, there's an image of Director Bones
as
with
Wildcat's
face pondering something, and in the background you can see images of various things. And for some reason now MODOK from Quantumania is in it, and it is horrifying.
Why not?
Worst.
But yeah, I just feel like there's always some weird meddling with DC. So like, I think having to spearhead that Dan Didio just couldn't do it, and I don't know. I don't even know if it's his fault. I don't even consider it his fault, really.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I think some of his ideas were a little wacky, and how he executed the ones that did get executed were dubious. But there's always too many fingers in the soup.
Indeed.
Put that on a shirt. Oh, I can.
I mean, listen, you can't sit on your own ass, you know?
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
And then to answer the question, how do you create a bridge from reading those to DC's mainline books? I think that is a very, very tall order. DC's young adult books are not the same, and they're not courting the same audience as their mainline books. It's just a very different animal. And I think it's good that DC tries to branch out and reach these different corners of the market. In my opinion, and this is an opinion that I have held for a long time, and I kind of feel like Dan's comments from last week about the 2 lost generations of potential comic book readers props up my opinion. I don't actually think that there is an untapped readership out there. That's not an opinion that I have. I don't think that there's all these people across the United States who are waiting for that particular thing to happen that's going to all of a sudden activate them and make them read Big 2 comics. I think people who want to read comics are already doing that. And they're doing that by reading, Dogman, or they're doing that by reading, whatever comic, or all the things that encompass comics. They're just not really going to Western comics. Yes, I do believe that there is a problem in bringing on new readers for Western comics, but the industry is fine with that for now. The industry can sustain itself for now if you don't believe that the variant cover problem is going to be the end of the industry. I don't think that there is a way to bridge that gap, though, to answer the question.
You brought up,
think that
Sean, you brought up last week the idea of maybe leaning into single volume releases, similar to how manga does it. Do you think?
Well, that was for the Ultimate line, yeah.
Well, do you think that could bridge the gap a bit if they do kind of lean into that?
Nope.
No?
Because the reason why I say that is because those people are looking for, so DC's hiring a lot of creators who have worked in the young adult space already to write those books. They're hiring artists and writers whose style is well suited towards the young adult book market. So that, in my mind, doesn't necessarily translate to what, and I'm just picking a name, like what Joshua Williamson's vision for the bigger DC universe is. You know, like DC's stories are not romance novels. They don't lend themselves to the same audience that wants that. They don't care about Deathstroke versus Nightwing, unless it's a love story, you know?
I mean, one thing that would be nice in comics in general, advertisement. It's not, like, books are not advertised anywhere. Like the mainline DC books. What is it? Previews? That's the most you get, previews in a CBR article? Like, that's your advertisement budget. I don't know, put freaking ads on TikTok. Like, there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just too expensive for what it makes, so it doesn't make sense.
My impression with these young adult GNs too is that the characters seem a lot different from the ones that are in the books.
Yeah.
So, you know, when they finish that Beast Boy and Raven graphic novel, they're gonna find themselves in a very different situation if they try and go into the mainline continuity. So that's not gonna encourage them to keep looking.
Exactly. That's the problem. The big two pigeonhole themselves, and they've created a very specific audience that wants very specific things. And I count myself in that. Like, I don't want the big two to change and all of a sudden have a manga style release or anything like that. In pockets, yeah, like the Ultimate Universe, but mainline DC or Marvel, I would balk at that. I would be very upset by that.
Dan brings up a point there in the Twitch chat saying that younger kids, it's hard to get them interested in monthly comics, but graphic novels they're interested in. And like that reminds me, like when I was a kid, I was reading Captain Underpants, like because I knew that was a full story in that one book. You know, the idea of here's this comic that maybe is 15 minutes at most worth of entertainment volume and time. You don't get the next one for a month. Like that doesn't compute to attention spans nowadays.
Yeah.
Like people freak out when the whole season isn't released for a show. You know, when they're weekly releases, people are like, whoa, hold on.
And we're talking adults.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget children.
Yeah. What about those iPad kids are not going to be able to deal with 15 minutes a month for it.
Yeah.
And the price too, like it's a weird thing. So Manny had a question too. Say the Ultimate Universe gets a fresh reboot. Who are the writers that take up the main titles? Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Ultimates, any other title I can't think of? I have a hunch after the announcement, Cates might take up Spider-Man.
And can you read that next comment as well?
Sure. And then Matt said, these Brian Hitch takes are respectfully ass. What new artists would you want to represent this era of Ultimates?
I read that comment this morning when Sean posted the show notes, and I went, God, I don't even remember what I said about Brian Hitch.
Me neither, but I could take a guess.
Yeah. It probably was ass.
Yeah.
Well, what we said, or what I said, I only remember what I said in this case. And what I said was that I would have preferred, or, you know, in my moment of thinking, like, gosh, it would have been cool if a new artist, someone who could put their stamp on this iteration of the Ultimate Universe, if we are getting a new iteration, if it's beyond just this one event. And I guess Matt did not like that.
Matt also bought one of the shittiest Wildstorm books, so he's just a nostalgia machine. So
that's fair.
If you want the nostalgia of the Ultimates, yeah, Brian Hitch is your guy. But I don't think that's what the line should be.
Right. I want the nostalgia for the event, I guess.
Sure.
But I don't want it for whatever comes next. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
But let's answer these questions. So we don't need to belabor this too much. Just spitfire, I guess. Creators that I think will be involved. I think Donny Cates is a great example of someone who probably should be involved. I think if you're going to bring on someone like Greg Capullo, having him be someone who can help spearhead, if this is a new initiative, having him be someone who can spearhead something like that is very smart. And him teaming up with Donny Cates on something like X-Men, banger. That would be a banger. So
and there's precedent for Donny Cates in the Ultimate Universe. He teased it in his Venom run. So like,
it was actually teased. We didn't get around to talking about this, but it was teased years ago. Donny Cates had teased something on Twitter regarding the Ultimate Universe, and when CB Cebulski was asked about that, he gave a non-answer. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about who could do what?
I hope they, just to keep it visually distinct from the main line. I don't know about writers, honestly. They can find people for that. But in terms of artists, they got a lot of European artists that they've been, mining for stuff at Marvel. Like Federici is one of them. I think if they lean into that as the art style, like the house art style for Marvel, where things are a little more Europe but slightly manga inspired, that could work. I don't want like a Geraldo Sandoval. Like that's a little too far in that direction, but that could work as well. People do appreciate that stuff. But I think it needs to have a distinct visual style to it.
That's where I was going to go for that exact reason. I was going to say Nicholas Draper Ivy. I think would set a good precedent for a universe style.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'd prefer no-name writers on it.
I think that's a way for it to die a death.
A big one for the mainline book, but like the secondary titles, like give someone a chance to, like that's kind of where like Bendis kind of kicked off his run. I mean, he was doing some stuff before that, but everyone knows Bendis for Spider-Man.
Maybe younger writers.
Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah,
writers who haven't quite had the chance to get to do something they really want to do. Like I don't know, this might be pigeonholing them a little too much, but like, I think of creators like Vita Ayala, who's been around a while, but it doesn't seem like they have had the real chance to put their stake in,
Yeah. I agree with that. I think you can grab Vita Ayala's. I think you can, add like a Leah Williams to this type of thing. And
yeah,
I think that's kind of the level. What?
You're asking for them to put non-dude writers on the Ultimates line? Come on.
Oh, damn, you're right. Never mind.
Breaking precedent there.
Blow it all up.
It was all just It was all just white dudes writing the Ultimates line, right?
Yeah. I mean,
dog, it's been all white dudes writing.
Fair. Yep.
The whole time.
Got me.
Writing it, drawing it. Yeah, I would just like to see. I would like to see, you have to have your top names. So you can't launch this type of thing without your top names. But I would also like to see the next top names, if you will. Like, yeah, if you have access to like Snyder, Hickman, they should all work there on the Ultimate line because you want to sell the comics. But I think ultimately, when those individuals move on from it, the people who should be spearheading it should be the next generation, if you will. And I think Vita Ayala, Leah Williams, and others are in that conversation. As far as art styles, I mean, gosh, this is probably not a great answer, but my mind goes to Pepe Larraz for stuff like this, of course. And I would love to see him have a turn with something.
I wouldn't, specifically because I feel like that has turned into Marvel's house style right now. Yes, if you bring it over to the Ultimate Universe, then where's the visual distinction? Because the Ultimate Universe was visually distinct when it first launched. Like Bagley kind of changed up the style a bit for that like Spider-Man looks different,
but somehow looks the same.
Well, yeah, eventually it kind of circled back around, but and then it got even more outdated again. But that's, it's Bagley for you.
Matt says, "Look how the next generation killed the X line." Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a weird situation because on one hand they're playing to the beat of someone else's drum as well, right? Like Hickman was the architect of that, and they had to tell the stories that fit in his sandbox, and they're still sort of doing that by telling the stories that fit in Kieran Gillen's sandbox. It's probably less stringent than that. And then, of course, you have editors like Jordan D. White who are dictating certain things. So the X-Line's in a weird spot. I don't inherently disagree with what you're saying, but I do think they deserve grace. And I would still be interested in seeing what they would do but I do think the Ultimate line would need to be more. It would need to have less rules on one hand, but on another hand, it would have to have a clear track.
Yeah,
Like it would have to feel smaller.
I think it would have to. I mean, I don't know if it's just the way the X line has sort of made me think of the rest of Marvel this way, but it feels like each title would need to have its own little focus. You know, Spider-Man happens in Spider-Man's world, the X-Men happen in the X-Men's world, the Avengers happens in theirs, and if there's a Captain America book, by God, it happens in his. You know, in that old style of comic books that doesn't quite feel like that anymore.
Yeah,
sure.
And with the X-Men, like Sean said, like that was kind of engineered by Hickman. At least this Ultimate Universe won't be engineered by Hickman. Wait a minute.
But my idea in my mind here, you know, this is going to be not a particular person's sandbox.
Sure.
I'm hoping if this is a new line or whatever, that it's just going to be a table setting on Hickman's part. And maybe he would do Avengers, but he wouldn't be dictating what happens in other books in Avengers, if you will.
What if they do go the MCU route and they just get a whole bunch of screenwriters?
I'm out.
Yeah, I don't need that. I'm tired. I'm already tired of that, actually.
Quickest way to kill a universe.
You want a Jeff Loveness written Ultimate Spider-Man?
I'm okay. Real quick, we did have a couple of comments that I think are worth getting to in the chat. Atomic Hound, do we ever see a scenario where DC and Marvel go day and date on digital subscriptions and have ad-supported versions to help bear some of the cost for the reader? I think day and date, on digital subscriptions.
That's Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe, right?
Yeah, I think that's not an impossibility, but it would really, really, really chap the asses of comic shop owners. Yeah. And that's not something that Marvel or DC really want to do, nor do I think it's good for the industry for them to do it. That being said, we have clear evidence that people who read digitally, regardless of anything, are not the same people who read physically. There's a clear delineation between how people want to read their comics, and they consistently make one choice over the other. And digital currently is a relatively small piece of the overall sales of comics in the Western market. So do I think it would be a death blow to the industry for specifically those services to go day and date? No, but I still don't think that they're going to do it because of the implication.
I think they won't do it because it would kill comic shops. I think. But if they smell blood in the water and that comic shops are dying from something else, they'll do it. They're going to jump on the chance to do it, I think. I think that's one of those things that they can just flip a switch and just decide to do. But because, look at Comics Pro that just happened last week. Retailers kind of have a gentle chokehold on the weekly release industry. So
I think you're...
Sean, you're muted, I think.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I thought it was me.
I would say they have a stranglehold.
I don't think they can, sure, but also they're not very powerful in the grand scheme of things. So
if they're keeping comics from being day and date, I would say they're pretty powerful.
Fair.
We had another one that I wanted to address. Oh yeah, Kingdom asked, but is the Ultimate Universe restored like its own universe? We don't know. We don't know yet. All we know is that Hickman and Hitch are going to be telling a story called Ultimate Invasion that will be appears to be some sort of crossover between the Ultimate Universe and Mainline 616. But the details of all of that are unclear. They will become clear as Free Comic Book Day rolls around, and then we get into the actual event proper in June. So it's up in the air.
If the event starts in June, typical events, what, 6 issues? Roughly? We don't know how long this event is. So
No, we don't. Yeah.
So it could lead into like a San Diego Comic-Con announcement. That lines up right in my head. Or what comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where things go with that. We got 2 more. Let's wrap these up.
Sure. Link asked, let's assume for a minute that James Gunn's attempts at building this big connected DC film universe fails completely. Bad reviews, low profits, and there's just no traction from the fan base. Does WB give up on trying to establish a shared cinematic universe, or do they try again with someone else in charge?
There's no reason to give up. It's too profitable.
Yeah, they'll try again.
I mean, if it's low profit, so he's just, Link's assuming here that it's not very profitable right now.
It's not. It may not be profitable for them based on how they're choosing to do it, but because the MCU is so successful, there is a blueprint for success, and there is proof that it can work. The question is, can it work for DC? And I don't think that when you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash in your arsenal, you ever have to question that part. The question is, can you deliver these characters and these myths in such a way that it inspires people to go to the theaters? And quite frankly, like, if we're being really real about it, that's not been DC's problem all the way. DC's problem hasn't been these movies cannot make money or these movies do not make money. Their problem is that outside of Batman, they haven't, and certain others, because even Aquaman was very successful. Joker and the Batman were huge successes. Yeah. Those are not in continuity per se. They were big successes. Batman vs. Superman was a big success. Don't get it twisted. It's just that the narrative around DC was god awful, and Justice League set them on a trajectory where it looked like things were going to go downhill, and so they figured out an exit strategy. But they can make money with these characters, and they will.
These characters are modern myths, really. Like, you can keep shoveling shit to people and they'll still eat it. You know what I mean? Like, the whole narrative for what the entire DCU since Man of Steel was, these movies could be better. Yeah. They do fine still,
Yeah.
People will
your opening weekend is always going to boom. It's that drop off that's going to hurt.
Yeah. I think the greater risk is because of Marvel and potential burnout from people there. Does that translate then to superhero movies in general? And then if it becomes a thing where like people are just burnt out on, capes and cowls in general, I don't know if they just start switching to, here's a Rorschach movie, but we'll see that. I don't think there's ever a time though where they say, hey, we're going to do like a Sony-esque Spider-Man deal where like, hey, you have the movie rights, but we'll keep advertisement rights or something. I don't think they ever sell things off that way. It's, if you look at WB slate, like
not anymore.
Most of the money comes from the superhero stuff. It almost is that was what fuels the good movies.
I don't think that there will come a time where people, by and large, ticket purchasers, and about social media warriors, but people who go to the theater and buy a ticket, where they don't want to see Batman and Superman share screen together. And the power of that will fuel whatever DC's ideas are, even if they're not that great. Now, granted, Justice League didn't do so well. It was really egregious. And I think even in that situation, people were angry because they wanted to like it so much, and they couldn't. And I think that's part of why the fuel of the Zack Snyder movie movement is so strong, because they want to love it so much.
Those bots are pretty strong.
No.
So there's no world, Sean, where WB sells Justice League to Netflix.
No. No.
Dude, my entire Facebook targeted ads is just sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. And it's like, guys, that's not how things work. Ugh. You're wasting money.
Foolish.
Quickly, we don't have to spend time on this. Should DC switch do you think their movies would do better if they made it slightly more family friendly, like maybe even leaning more toward kids. I just had the thought of like the Justice League animated series.
I don't think kids movies do as well though, traditionally, like in terms of profit margin. Like Puss in Boots versus, the Batman, it's not comparable. I don't see how it would make sense.
Well, I think to Kale's point though, it doesn't have to be dark to be a Batman movie. And I think there's a world where, in fact, I think we're about to enter that world. I don't think that James Gunn's DC is going to be this dark hellscape. I actually think there's going to be quite a bit of brightness to it. And it would be stupid not to, because first of all, Marvel has had a lot of success making, family-friendly movies. Obviously, there are moments that might buck that trend, but by and large, you can take your kid to a Marvel movie and do okay.
Yeah.
And I think DC would do well to do that. So a movie that has Superman in it should be a movie that a kid can go and enjoy. I do believe that. And I guess maybe not in every instance. I would sound like a hypocrite because I don't necessarily feel that way for Batman. I think kids can go, but I don't think that Batman movies have to
Cater to them.
Sure. Thank you. So, maybe it's case by case. DC's very different. Their characters are myths unto themselves. Marvel is the world of Marvel is mythological, but DC's characters are myths unto themselves.
Yeah.
So they each occupy a different space. Like, and this is something that actually Alan Moore talks about. But DC's characters don't necessarily fit together well. Especially when you go from the top end to the mid end or lower, it's kind of weird that they're together.
Yeah.
And so I think they have an advantage in that tonally they can do whatever they want, case by case, and it works. It can work.
And they're already having their cake and eating it too, because like Super Pets came out last year, $90 million budget, made $207 million. So like made over double. So and that was a little thing.
So I mean, it's hard to say that's not profitable.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But like, why make that? Like, they could just do that whenever, I guess. It doesn't even need to be their main line. It's already profitable.
I guess that's sort of what I mean.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yes. So Jones 25 full said, "I love comics. Been reading since the late 90s, but I've just burnt out on the MCU. Endgame felt like the fiery climax, and now it feels like we were shifting around the embers. I think Disney Plus has been a blight on their slate and stretched them too thin. I hope they take their time going forward, but I doubt it because they seem to not have taken any lessons from the mistakes in the last 2 years."
I agree with that.
The only thing I'll say is that we can't say what lessons they've learned because of how far in advance they have to work.
Yeah.
The film and television industry works years and years in advance. So the slate we're seeing up until 2025 is whatever. And they can't really pivot too much when you have announced big tentpole movies and things like that. With Disney Plus, they have more wiggle room. Like we see how they are now slowing down the process. You can already tell on their releases. Some stuff may never come out. Like I'm not convinced Agatha will necessarily ever see the light of day. But with film, you can't really do that. I think they have learned lessons. I just think we're not going to see those lessons for some time.
And I think with the entertainment industry in general, due to COVID, like it was wacky, they had to lean into streaming platforms because people couldn't physically go to theaters.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've still seen the end of those repercussions because they went, whole hog, into streaming, and now it's not what it's about anymore. It's weird. I don't think that's necessarily a Disney problem. That's just an entertainment industry problem in general. Look at what HBO Max is doing, just removing stuff for tax write-offs because of it.
Paramount has just laid off a ton of people as well.
Yeah.
And
Entire
Discovery,
Star Trek
I think,
Discovery cast.
Just they just announced their final season for a show that's been pretty successful. I think it's safe to say, so I think in terms of like the potential lessons we've seen Disney learn or not, I think we're still very much in this era of, oh, the people like Thor. What was the third one?
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder.
That was Love and Thunder?
Yeah.
No,
Ragnarok.
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 Fuck, there's
Sorry.
4 Thor movies. I forgot.
I know, yeah. People like Thor Ragnarok. I think we're still sort of in that era. And I think the reason they're slowing, they're telling us they're slowing down is because they're realizing that's not quite, what every movie needs to be, given Thor Love and Thunder, Quantumania, and even Black Widow to an extent.
Dude, I forget Black Widow existed constantly.
Yeah.
How many of the Marvel movies have you gone to see in theaters?
Is that you asking me?
All of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
Did you see Black Widow in theaters?
Yeah.
I didn't. No, because of COVID. I watched.
That's
it.
what I was.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah. It makes sense to me why you would forget that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
I was probably on my phone, is what you're saying.
Well, shit. If I'm at home, right, watching a movie, no one's telling me to keep my phone in my pocket while I watch. So yeah, it comes out.
Dude, that's why I go to the theaters.
Right.
I have ADHD. Like I need the social pressure to pay attention.
100%. So we are going to get into the news. Before we do that, and if you're really excited to hear us talk about Twilight of the Gods or Twilight of the Superheroes, I knew that was going to happen eventually. Hang tight. We are about to get into that. We have just a couple of news items we want to touch on, but I did want to quickly shout out and plug a listener's Kickstarter. So Sylv Stevenson is a listener of the Comics Pals, and they are going to be launching a Kickstarter here on March 13th for the Death Tally. They're going to be putting out a compendium that encompasses Death Tally 1 through 3, and it's going to come with hard enamel pins that you can get through the Kickstarter as well. The art is phenomenal by Gab Sarah. Really just beautiful stuff. So I think you should give it a shot. I think you should give it a look. I actually really want to check this out because I've missed the last Kickstarter, so I want to see what the Death Tally is all about. Syl is a very, very cool person, a good person who did us, so we're supporting in kind. And I think as a community, let's give it a look. Let's give it a look.
Cool as hell.
Through the
too.
link in the chats there. So if you guys want to hit that little notify me on launch little button there, you can.
Yeah.
Quickly, the elevator pitch here is she accidentally killed the Reaper. Now she must replace it.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Blue Oyster Cult would love it too.
Interesting.
All right. So let's talk Joe Madureira's Battle Chasers. I never thought we'd be talking about this on this podcast, but Battle Chasers is making its return. And I want to say this right up front. I have no familiarity at all with Battle Chasers. Not only that, but Battle Chasers is one of those books that I've been hearing about since I started reading comics that I've literally never even seen an issue of in person. I've never encountered it. I even missed the book club we did on it. So I have no relationship to this whatsoever.
I'm with. Wait, you guys did a book club in Battle Chasers? Like
we sure did. We sure did.
It must have been Pete, Phil, and Marco that did it because I wasn't here for it either.
Jeez. It is like the Bigfoot of comics for me, Everyone's, I've seen it, I've seen it, it was great. And I'm like, I've never seen it physically anywhere. I've seen Kickstarters, I've seen Bleeding Cool articles. I've seen reports on it coming back constantly. But I never actually see the book. So I like Joe Mad. His art is iconic. His Charles Soule Inhumans run, really underrated run. I recommend people check that out. Try to reinvent Inhumans as the new X-Men. I think it worked. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, big announcement for an issue 10 coming out,
Yeah.
But and also like I'll believe it when I see it, sort of thing. But
so I believe it's going to come out, and the reason why I believe that is also what I think takes away from this announcement, which is that it's not being drawn by Joe Mad.
There
The
was your
art,
issue. Yeah.
the art is by Lulabi or Luabi, and the art's great. It's really awesome, and I think it echoes the style that Joe Mad has and that made Battle Chasers popular. But isn't the draw of this series the art of Joe Madureira? Like, shouldn't that be there? He says he couldn't do it. He says he finally realized 20 years down the road that he could not do this book if he has to do the art as well because of everything that he's involved with.
So the Little Lulabi has been a frequent collaborator of Joe Mad. You know, Joe Mad kind of helped design a lot of the World of Warcraft comics. Character designer there. Little Lulabi did like Curse of the Worgen, some of the Legion comics. So like that is there. I might actually have some somewhere here. So Matt's saying the real draw is the plot. So
I bet.
I thought you were more of a backstory guy, but whatever.
It looks good. It's weird because it's returning, but it's returning with issue 10. Sorry?
Are they going to reprint 1 through 9? Like, I'm lost.
So Image is gonna be re-releasing, you know, everything. But like, what the hell? There was an anthology that they put out, which is cool. If you want to keep up with this, you will have to go out and buy, presumably, one of those anthologies. They're putting out a new one. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. Will I buy the 10th though? Probably.
Murphy says there's been a recent collection put out, so
yeah,
it might be fairly inexpensive.
There was one in 2019 for sure, and they do say that they're going to be putting out a new one.
Sean,
it's gone back to print as well, the 2019.
I just busted out my Warcraft comics. The Little Lulabi drew I guess from the beginning, the Warcraft book, written by Walt Simonson.
Fun fact, I've read none of those.
Yeah, this is where Varian shows up. This is where his first appearance is. It's not in the games.
I got to get on that.
Jim Lee drawn variant of Varian on there too. So
that's sick.
Good quality hardcover.
That is cool.
Was it Dark Horse? I don't know.
Yes, I believe they were the ones that had the right step. But yeah, so this is cool for those of you who are huge fans. This comes out June 14th. So,
and time for Flash.
Yeah, we'll have Flash and we'll have Battle Chasers in the same week.
What else could you need?
Yeah, right.
Bullet in the head.
That's the option I'll be taking.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that have been dormant, let's talk about Batman Beyond.
We're going to talk about Marco.
We are Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. So Batman Beyond is, of course, the follow-up to Batman the Animated Series, which is legendary and classic. I would say that Batman Beyond is maybe not equally as legendary and classic, but it's certainly up there. And
I would say it's as legendary, less classic.
Okay, I'll take that. It's something. It's a story that has a lot of people hold it dearly. It means something to a lot of people. Batman Beyond does, and they've done some comic stuff, obviously, with Batman Beyond over the years. So it's not as if the character's just been ghost. But when it comes to, you know, the big screen, when it comes to animated, we haven't seen much of Batman Beyond since the initial series and the movie that they put out, The Return of the Joker, which is, that is so good.
Fire.
Tyler, not in agreement? You don't.
No, that wasn't agreeing. That was a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The movie is good. Yeah.
We talked years ago about a Batman Beyond movie, live action, being in the works. and I want to say it was Christina Hodson was working on that at some point, but that's probably not going to happen. Or rather, Christina Hodson was working on it. It's not going to happen, but according to Jeff Snyder on the Hot Mic podcast, there is an animated Batman Beyond movie that's in the works, and it's been in the works since 2019, and it is sort of to be an answer to the Spider-Verse stuff that's going on. Now, a Batman Beyond live action movie, I think, is super cool. But I don't know that I need it.
Yeah.
An animated movie, though. All right. Now we're talking.
I think they
That
should have
could
an
be
answer to Spider-Verse. Like, if Marvel is beating DC at animation, like that, there's something wrong. This is their bread and butter, really. This is what.
Well, is Marvel beating them in animation?
In terms of theater releases, what we got? Super Pets versus Into the Spider-Verse. So, like, this is the same company that put out the New Frontier movie, which is fantastic. So, yeah, I would like this to be like even if they like make it like the Batman version of Spider-Verse, like show me Batman by Gaslight or whatever. Show me Batman Who Laughs. Like make it a multiversal thing.
I don't know.
I'm totally cool with being a carbon copy too.
No, I'm tired of multiverses. I'm done with that.
We just started.
I'm finished with it.
We just started.
No, I'm done. If that's it, if that's true, if there's more multiverses happening,
You're out.
I'm gonna give it 3 more years. If there's more multiverses within 3 years, I'm done. I'm so tired of multiverses.
I think there's a lot that can be done with Batman Beyond that doesn't need to be multiverse to be successful. I think DC has the hearts and minds of animated superhero fans. And Batman Beyond is a character that, look, it came from that. Batman Beyond from the love of those animated shows. It was an animated show that people really loved. I think a return of that would hit the nostalgia button for a lot of people. But I also think it being animated would give a lot of new fans a way in, and they would really love it, given the love of Spider-Verse and things like that. So I think this is a no-brainer if they really go through with it.
Somehow Batman Beyond is more dated now than the animated series is.
In what regard?
Just the whole, it's like this weird future that existed in like the late 90s, early 2000s of what we thought the future would be with weird lingo and stuff. Like saying glitch or what are some other, those weird catchphrases they'd have in Batman Beyond. Whereas like the animated series is kind of timeless. Purposefully so.
I agree with that, but I don't feel like that really negates how popular something like this could be.
Oh no, I don't think so. I agree. I'm just saying, like, I feel like in terms of like if we're gonna compare it to the animated series, one's a little more rewatchable than the other, in my opinion. So maybe they might need to make some kind of changes to Batman Beyond.
Yeah, they will, no doubt.
I think they would, but don't we love it for what it is?
I sure do.
I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan of the series. I think that the movie's fun.
Well, I'm looking at a Howard the Duck Funko Pop in a mech, so your taste is something I'm not. I'm not
This?
quite. Yeah.
Wait, is that the dude from? That reminds me of from Toy Story. Isn't there like a duck on legs or something? Oh no, yeah, right.
Something like that.
Something
no,
like
this is
that,
from
yeah.
I think the Contest of Champions game. But yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Am I good? Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, I'm into it. If it happens, I would be very, very happy. But I'm actually not holding my breath for this one.
Yeah, same as the live action one. I'm still a bit like, it's still like, especially when their big thing is we should have an answer to the Spider-Verse. It still feels like they're chasing tails. Like they need to be building things on their own. And basically, since the Bruce Timm stuff, they just haven't been doing it.
I wouldn't even like. I would say that Batman Beyond could be the baseline for something special. You could have other characters in that world who are the future version of characters that we know and love, and it doesn't have to be a multiverse, but you could. It should not be a multiverse, but you could build out a world of animated movies spawning from the Batman Beyond film if it were to be successful. It could be something that has legs, but
Yeah.
if they were going to do this, I would like to see it.
I would like to see the baby.
Whose baby?
Oh, that's a Mandalorian quote. You don't watch Mandalorian, Sean?
I do. Are you? Is it a quote from the new
From,
episode?
like
or whatever?
episode 2.
Dude, what do you think I watched that shit?
You don't remember Werner Herzog in a Star Wars? Like that is imprinted into my memory.
I don't even know who Werner Herzog is, but it's not as if.
Yep.
It's not as if The Mandalorian is such high television that I have to remember lines of dialogue from random people from the second episode.
We're gonna be doing a Patreon movie review of Aguirre, the Wrath of God. That's what we're gonna be doing.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think we're out of the era of quotable TV shows?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I quote Poker Face all the time by just saying bullshit.
By just saying bullshit.
Well, I guess that's not a very good quote.
I think, like, I personally don't come across a lot of things in shows where I'm like, oh my God, I have to start saying that now.
Yeah.
When I go on the internet or I get on here and I hear Tyler talk, there's all kinds of things that people are referencing that I don't know about. So
I think quotes are now just TikTok sounds.
Or Vine. Yeah.
Well, let's quickly talk about a new imprint that Marvel is launching. If you can believe those words coming out of my mouth. Marvel, and it's not that dramatic, first of all, because it's not as if they're doing something brand spanking new. All they're really doing is they are taking their Planet of the Apes, Alien, and Predator books, which are all 20th Century Fox, or I guess 20th Century Studios properties, and they are building a comics imprint around that. So all of these are things that we've been getting. You know, Planet of the Apes is on the horizon, but Alien and Predator we've certainly been getting from Marvel. And they're now just making it official. So it's got the nice dressing on top that has the 20th Century Studios logo on it, in a big logo. And then Marvel's logo is kind of small on the bottom, which is interesting to see. I'm assuming that these will not be the only books that get announced for this line, but it's all we know about right now. I had seen some people Avatar, The Last Airbender,
which could be Dark Horse had the rights to at a certain point, but Dark Horse losing the rights to something is not out of the realm of possibility. So
exactly. The rights just are kind of in flux.
In fact, I feel like announcing this is because they have Avatar coming. That's a big thing.
It's a herald of that. Yeah, 100%.
Do you guys have a property you'd want to see in comic book form from 20th Century Studios? I have a couple that I'd like.
What do you got?
I don't know what they do.
I like the Transporter. Remember Jason Statham's Transporter series of movies?
Oh my God.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Big Mama's House comics. Let's go.
Of course.
Mrs. Doubtfire, the graphic novel. We could do that. 24. Remember those 24 show? You were a 24 guy, weren't you, Sean?
So
that could be a comic.
It could be fun. Yeah.
24 was good as hell. I love 24.
They have Die Hard. That's a sellable comic, I think. John McClane comics.
I think Die Hard could be dead, and I'm okay with it.
What else? They have The Fly. Good Cronenberg stuff, you know. Like they can do adaptations in the graphic novel form with this that I think could be interesting. Home Alone, come on, that could be fun.
No,
Hellraiser.
This trade dressing with the purple banner and is that what it looks like?
Yeah,
Bro, that looks like shit.
I like it. Oh,
They better get a designer on that logo or something because that looks bad.
dude, I like it. It's purple. I like purple, and I'm simple.
Is it? You just like the purple?
Yeah, I like the color
The
purple.
whole thing could be purple,
but
and
the
that
color
would-
purple, not a 20th Century Studios property. So
I don't have a problem with the purple. That's not. It's the 20th Century Studios giant logo that's sitting over the ape's face. That like why?
So it's funny because up until the new Force Awakens, 20th Century Fox released the Star Wars movies.
Right.
Like, do they transition them over to that? Probably not. I don't think. But yeah, Night of the Museum, that could be a fun series of comics.
I now that we're talking about this, I actually really hope they don't add to the line, because I think there's a point at which it gets silly, and
Mrs. Doubtfire would do that.
Yeah, like it waters down the whole spirit of what they're trying to do. They have to be very, very, very careful. I think if you wouldn't normally make a comic about it, you probably should just not make a comic about it, even if you have this imprint. Like if they didn't have the imprint at all and they wouldn't release the book, they shouldn't release it now because they have it. Planet of the Apes, Predator, Alien, they all make sense as comics. They're action packed and they're interesting. They got interesting looking characters.
All sci-fi, yeah.
For as much as I love the movie Mrs. Doubtfire, and I know you're joking, but like for as much as I love that movie, I think without Robin Williams, like it's just very pedestrian. I don't feel like it lends itself.
With
Mrs.
all
Doubtfire was, Mrs. Doubtfire was a book before it was a film.
I did not know that.
With all of these and potentially Avatar also being sci-fi space books, crossover potential, like Alien versus Predator makes sense. Alien versus the Planet of the Apes, Predator on Avatar Island, that could be something. Is that what they plan on doing here?
Everything's got to be a fucking universe.
Of course.
Star Trek with the Green Lanterns. Star Trek with the Power Rangers.
Oh,
Star Trek meets Batman.
Have Star Trek X.
That's remarkable.
Part of Paramount Comics.
I wouldn't be bothered. I wouldn't be bothered by that. Sure, whatever. It's not for me, so I don't care what they do with it. If it's for people, if it works for who they're targeting, then why not? Especially because, as you pointed out, at least Alien and Predator have that history, and it's very easy for me to understand how you could slot Planet of the Apes into that. So that would be fine for me.
Other thing is that with this being outside of Marvel, can these be a little more adult because of that?
No.
You don't think so? You don't think it can?
How much more adult do they need to be? I mean, like Marvel Comics do some pretty,
I guess maybe I want to see
things
some
happen there.
xenomorphs mating. I don't know.
What are you into? What are you into? I can't. I cannot.
Feet and aliens fucking.
Unbelievable, Tyler. So, I mean, I guess the only other thought I had or question is, now that Marvel has this new imprint, do you feel like this opens the doors to additional new imprints, or do you feel like this is just making official something that was kind of already happening?
The second one.
Yeah.
Marvel tends to keep it pretty tight with imprints, I think. Your Ultimates, your Max, your
Knights.
I feel like there's another one, Knights. I feel like they tend to keep it pretty tight.
I was always I always wonder why they never made a Star Wars imprint. You know, like
I don't think you need.
I guess.
Well,
yeah.
one, I genuinely think to keep the door for crossover potential, to keep that open.
Yeah, that's like a in case of
Um,
emergency break glass thing. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we need to sell 1 million comics. We need to have Darth Vader fight the Avengers.
Yeah.
Um,
Fortnite, the comic.
but I also think that, you know, Star Wars sells itself. Like I don't think you need to have um a Star Wars imprint. If a book is Star Wars, it's Star Wars. You know?
I agree.
But I mean, we have the big question mark of the Ultimate Universe too. So like, it's just a precursor for the Ultimate's imprint finally coming back. You know, as opposed to it just being books. You know.
Right. Yeah, that could happen. That could happen. And if that does happen, then maybe they will do it for Star Wars. But I don't know. I kind of feel like they should not. But I guess it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Yeah. I will say, I am excited for this Planet of the Apes book though, because it's David F. Walker writing it, and I traditionally like his stuff. So
Yeah, David Walker does good work. I'll buy it. I'll buy the first one at least.
sure, we'll probably
I'll
talk
buy
about
the first
show.
one. Yeah, 100%.
You ever see the original movie, Sean?
Nope.
And it still holds up. It's
I
really
want to
good.
watch it.
Yeah.
I want to get around to that.
The Tim Burton one's a little, but
Well, I like the Matt Reeves
yeah, those are great.
version.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So now we're gonna get into our main topic. And sorry.
Oh, I just said woohoo. That's all.
Oh, okay. And as we teased up front, this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time. It's something that I think a lot of people who are very online and are comic fans and who have done the digging over the years probably know about. Long rumor turned fact turned official by DC in 2020. We are talking about Alan Moore's event that never was, Twilight of the Superheroes. Okay. So in 1987, Alan Moore was on top of the comics industry. Watchmen was, of course, a huge success, and it wrapped in October of that year. Moore was riding high on that success. We know that things between Moore and DC became sour after it was clear that he would never get the rights to Watchmen characters, and that even though DC had sold Moore and Gibbons on the idea that eventually they would get these rights back and they would reap all these benefits and things like that, that DC never intended to let Watchmen go out of print. And so they sort of tricked him, at least from his perspective, and he said he would never work with them anymore after he realized that his relationship with them would officially end in 99. But before things fell apart, Alan Moore was working on a project for DC that could be viewed as the spiritual successor for Watchmen. I have never seen anyone say that before about this. That's what I am saying. And I believe that. And we'll talk about why. In 1995, the 39-page proposal for this project mysteriously popped up on the internet, and it would go on to be a battleground for Moore and DC, and it would show audiences a peek at what they would never actually get. We're talking about Alan Moore's Twilight of the Superheroes, the greatest superhero story never told. Now, Alan Moore talks a lot about his philosophy on superheroes, what he thinks a good crossover is, and many, many, many other things. And I think as we talk about this, it's important to break down the mindset of Alan Moore and where he's coming from. This is a project that we will be doing over multiple weeks, the next few weeks at least. And so we're going to talk about this in stages. And today I really want to go over what Alan Moore was thinking when he created his pitch and sent it off to DC, why he did it, what inspired it, who inspired it, and what his hopes were for Twilight of the Superheroes. Before we start, do either one of you, Kayla or Tyler, have a familiarity with this at all?
Nope. Not at all.
Just whispers. Yeah. Early internet forum stuff, that's all.
I feel like I've heard of Twilight of the blank, but that could be Twilight of the Gods.
It is, yeah.
Versus this, like maybe I've heard of superheroes, maybe not, but I've definitely, I'm familiar with that title to a certain degree.
Twilight of the Gods is essentially what Ragnarok is. Like that's basically what that means. And so this is taking that idea, that concept, and then of course applying it to superheroes. I think for most people, it has been whispers and rumors. There was a time when this was not even accessible and it was difficult to find, and it really is just this proposal. People have done fan art over the years and things like that, but there's not anything more than this that is an official thing.
What year was it pitched?
This was pitched in 97.
97.
Or I'm sorry, 87. Jesus, 87. 97. My God. By 97, I think Alan Moore was trying to figure out how to curse the brass at DC Comics.
Figure it out by then. Yeah, it's been working ever since.
So, I want to start with what it is, because I think a lot of people don't even have any familiarity about what this would have been, what the plan was, and things like that. So, Twilight of the Gods would have been the event that followed Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it would have seen a Rip Hunter and John Constantine from the future returning to that present DC. So DC's present in 1980, whatever, or early 90s, whenever this would have come out, to warn the heroes about the future and try to prevent it from occurring. That future is 30 years from the present, when the world is now ruled by different superhero dynasties. The House of Steel, which features Superman and Wonder Woman, who are now married. The House of Thunder, which is the Marvel family, so like Mary Marvel and Billy Batson and everybody else like that. The Titans, the proper Justice League, and other groups. So what I've just laid out for you is that the world has now been overtaken. It's been run over by superheroes, and there is no longer, the human influence is diminished because superheroes now run stuff, and it's hurting the world. I'm not going to get any more today on what actually happens in the story, because that's what we're going to tell this over time. But I want to circle back and talk about Alan Moore's mentality and why this was going to exist. I'm going to read words from Alan Moore now.
Sean, before you read this,
yeah,
do we all have our psychic blockers on to prevent mind melting? Kale, did you put yours? Did you do it yours this morning?
I've actually turned mine off.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
I'm really looking for that right now.
Cool.
So
good, sounds good.
So this is Alan Moore on crossovers. Mind you, the actual document is very long. Like I said, 39 pages. And it actually starts in a funny way. Moore says, "I'm sure this is going to be an interminable ramble, as these things usually are." So yeah, it is very much that. But I've parsed through it to find the things that are, I think, most interesting and pertinent, and we'll go from there. Quote, "Firstly, as I see the commercial side, the perfect mass crossover will be something like the following. It would have a sensible and logical reason for crossing over with other titles, so that the readers who were prompted to try a new title as a result of the crossover, or vice versa, didn't feel cheated by some tenuous linkage of storylines that was at best spurious and at worst non-existent. It would provide a strong and resonant springboard from which to launch a number of new series, or with which to revitalize old ones again in a manner that was not obviously crassly exploitative so as to insult the reader's intelligence. With an eye to the merchandising that Marvel managed to spin out of Secret Wars, I think it's safe to assume that if it were possible to credibly spin role-playing games, toys, quote, waiting for Twilight, unquote, posters and t-shirts and badges and all the rest of that stuff from the title, then that would be a good idea. Ideally, it might even be possible, while appealing to the diehard superhero junkie, to produce a central story idea simple, powerful, and resonant enough to bear translation to other media. I mean, I know that I'm still probably intoxicated by the Watchmen deal, but it never hurts to allow for these things as a possibility, does it?
Man, I love hearing Alan Moore, the capitalist.
Not just Alan Moore, the capitalist, Alan Moore, the optimist. At this point, Alan Moore is optimistic about his future with DC because Watchmen went so well.
Yeah.
This is 87.
Yeah.
Watchmen was, we don't know exactly what month, but if it was earlier than October, Watchmen wasn't even done. And it was a hit on release. It's not like it became a hit later.
That in
So
Dark Knight came out the same year, right?
I think so.
Yeah. It kind of
Similar time
revitalized
frame,
what
sure.
people thought comics were, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fascinating to me to read the words of a man who we now know as, bitter and jaded, being hopeful and optimistic about what could come next. I love that. Thought that was pretty cool.
And it's just weird hearing him talk about like, oh, the marketing potential of these toys, and we're gonna do like a waiting for Twilight thing. It's Alan Moore as Stan Lee, which is like mind-boggling now, with the history that's been there.
Well, I think also too, it's him selling it, to the higher ups.
And I'm sure like Secret Wars, the original one, did well, Even the toys, like the toys are iconic, it's not even just the comics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pitching this as a answer to that, smart move.
Yeah. He went on to say, for one thing, crossovers require some very hard thinking about in advance if they're not going to generate more problems than they solve. And in thinking about something which will affect every book that the company publishes, if only in subtle ways, then one obviously has to be very careful. I shouldn't say that as yet, although I saw the outlines, I haven't read any of the Legend series or its crossovers, mainly by reason of not having got out to a comic shop recently. The premise, and pay close attention to this because this will sound familiar. The premise, if I understand it correctly, looked very good. It seemed to be attempting to give a sort of resonant mythic context to the DC pantheon while at the same time establishing a more rigorous social context for the assembled characters in terms of storytelling, thus drawing the whole DC continuity together into an interesting whole, which is exactly what it needs doing in the wake of the crisis. The more we can reinforce the idea of DC Universe as magical and concept in itself, assuming that those are our aims, then the more successful we'll be in keeping readers hooked upon that universe and on the books that chronicle its various phenomena. So what is he saying? Let's break it down. There was a book called DC Legends, and it was a weird event crossover that didn't actually cross over with any books. It left the crossover open-ended in the sense that the books that were being published at the time and referenced by the Legends event didn't include any major crossover stuff. They were still doing their own thing, but the Legends book managed to reference that. And it was a very different sort of idea. It was a 6-issue event, and the crossovers were like Batman at the time, Superman, Secret Origins, and it's sort of the first crossover after the crisis. And it launched several books and things like that. He's looking at this as a blueprint and a way to create a mythos and reestablish the mythic quality of these superheroes, which is what we were talking about earlier. Remember, I was saying DC's heroes are more monoliths unto themselves, and Marvel is more of a universal monolith. The Marvel universe is the draw. whereas for DC it's the characters. Alan Moore is trying to change that, but he's also trying to establish, and this you'll understand this a little more. He's also trying to establish the DC characters as absolute and timeless, and it's very ambitious. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about how.
So I was looking into this Legends thing. I guess that's what launched Suicide Squad by Ostrander. Ostrander wrote this. Ostrander written and John Byrne drawn Legends, which that's a fucking team.
Yeah, Dan Trudeau says it launched the new Justice League, the Suicide Squad, and the Wonder Woman reboot, and it was the first appearance of Amanda Waller.
Yep.
Oh, the wall.
Exactly.
I mean, the one thing that jumped out to me too, Sean, that you mentioned is him wanting to kind of make these characters almost mythological, but also retain the social aspect to it, that it's social commentary on things, which just, that's Watchmen. That's Dr. Manhattan, versus, all the stuff that happens around Dr. Manhattan.
Exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And the DNA of what Alan Moore thinks about superheroes and comics in general is all over this. It's all over this. And the other thing that I got out of this, especially from just reading the whole document, is that Alan Moore, maybe not the absolute biggest fan of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Too wordy for him.
I think based on what he says, he has problems with what it did to DC overall and the universe. I'm going to go on. Of course, this approach isn't without its problems. If you don't do it right, if your assembled multitude of characters look merely banal, which I personally believe happened with Secret, then your entire continuity is cheapened in the long term, along with its credibility, whatever the short-term benefits in terms of sales might be. When this happens, your only recourse is to greater acts of debasement in order to attract reader attention, more deaths to appease the arena crowd element in the fan marketplace, eventually degenerating into a geek show. Crassness aside, is that not sort of what happened?
Greater acts of debasement.
Dude is calling what is still happening now, even the way he describes crossovers.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And what they should be and what they are now is what they shouldn't be still,
Yeah. And when I was reading through this stuff, I was tying it into what Dan Didio had said. Sort of like, we kept doing the same thing and we kept playing to the same audience. And in order to appease them, we had to keep doing more and more and more and more. Like, not more different stuff, more of the same stuff. And in my mind, Moore is outlining the dangers of that. So to continue, then there are the unintentional injuries in internal logic that can be unwittingly inflicted upon the mass continuity by such a venture, whatever the individual merits of the creators or their efforts, purely by the vast organizational problems that a project of this size seems to encounter. To explain that, I should perhaps look at a series that I have read, that being Marv and George's excellent Crisis on Infinite Earths. Although the motive was pure and the aim true with regard to Crisis, I can't help but feeling that somewhere along the line, in the attempt to consolidate and rationalize the DC cosmos, a situation even more potentially destabilizing and precarious was created. What he's talking about is the way that the Crisis eliminated the multiverse. Alan Moore felt that eliminated creativity and possibility, but he also felt that it annihilated and, to use his direct word, it unpeopled the characters who were lost in the Crisis. It did something worse than killing them. It removed them from the reality of the comics altogether.
Oh, like Earth 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's true.
You saw that as a problem.
They just don't. They don't exist anymore. They never had like an ending. Their story's gone. Yeah, I can see that. It feels a little dramatic, but I get it.
Well, but it even more than it takes away like an ending, it takes away context.
Sure.
Exactly. That's exactly. He said, he talks so much about that. I don't want to read every word, but yeah, go ahead.
The idea of the multiverse is ingrained in the framework of the DC universe. Look at that iconic Flash cover. with the two Flashes running side by side. Like it's
Sure.
it's identity. Oh boy, not
That's
Identity Crisis, Dan. We're not talking about that yet.
That's exactly what DC is, and I think Alan was trying to parse out how to get back to that. So moving forward, he said, I believe that one of the things that the comic fan is looking for multi-title crossover epics is some sense of a sanely ordered cosmos, not offered to him or her by the news headlines or the arguments of their parents over breakfast. That isn't to say that it's healthy or necessarily desirable to fulfill this fundamentally escapist sort of urge. I myself would feel uncomfortable if the imaginary reality I was offering my readers was intended as a pacifier rather than as something to make them think about their own reality. I'd cite Watchmen as an example of how it's possible to fulfill the requirements of a continuity much more strict and rigidly defined than is usual, while still making some sort of relevant point about that the book readers are living in.
So even back in the late 80s, Alan Moore would have said "fuck you" to the people who said, "I don't want politics in my comics. I just want escapism."
Right. He believes that that's the death of story.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like he's saying, "Hey, we can have our cake, but we gotta put some nutrients in there. We gotta put some." we got to put the vitamins in there that we need.
It sounds like a disgusting cake.
It probably is.
Maybe a smoothie is more apropos.
Yeah, it's that same way of whether you like it or not, like McDonald's is all sugar, but if you need a meal, you can eat it and it will fill you,
Right. Exactly.
If you read nothing but comic books, you'll get something out of it.
And Moore doesn't want to serve McDonald's.
Right.
Moore understands your need for McDonald's as an unconscious lack of care for your life and a desire to escape and not address your life. Moore wants to force you to look at it and evaluate it.
Moore wants you eating a Big Mac while watching Super Size Me.
Well, good. He wants to make Red Robin the restaurant.
Is that any better?
Yum.
The
That's
McDonald's,
right?
I mean, marginally.
So he says, attendant to this, there are a number of people in the industry who feel that it's time on the continuity and try to get rid of a lot of the rather anal and obsessive attitudes that have been allowed to dominate the marketplace and to some degree have hindered it in its periodic attempts to be taken seriously. And now we get into his reasoning for doing this. And what I believe is probably, alongside Watchmen and Crisis, the primary reason why Alan Moore wanted to make this comic. Here we go. I suppose a shining example of this would be Frank's Dark Knight, which, while it doesn't seem bothered about fitting into any graven-in-stone continuity, does service to the legend of Batman and brilliantly redefines the character for an 80s audience, and nobody really seems to care how much this all fits into the continuity because it's such a bloody good story. Will Jason Todd really die? Will all the superheroes leave Earth to Superman and his government pals? Will Oliver Queen really get his arm burned off at the elbow in a fight with Clark and become an embittered urban terrorist? Who cares? He's saying that what the Dark Knight did for Batman was that it established a framework by which every creator who comes after Frank Miller can look at and say, okay, this is who Batman is. This is where Batman ends up. This is the end of the line. This is the myth of Batman. How do we reach that point? That's up to us. But this is the framework. And everybody knows it because this is the hottest thing in comics. So if you care about Batman comics in the 80s, you know this story. Mm-hmm. So when something happens in the current Batman that makes you think about that, you go, oh, wow, there's that connective tissue, but it doesn't disrupt it if you've never read that. You're not disrupted by a lack of having read The Dark Knight because you're letting the future inform the past, which is the exact opposite way that comics operate.
But it's also funny because he's also saying here too that if it's a good story, the what's around it doesn't matter because people are enjoying it for it being a good story in and of itself.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This so it's forward thinking and continuity as opposed to the previous past thinking. And stop me if I'm getting to where you're going, Sean, but this sounds a lot like Future State.
Okay.
You know, like they were planning, or not Future State, but 5G in a way.
5G, yes.
Yeah. You know, planning the future and how we get there is the fun part. Maybe in a much more condensed timeline, which might have been what the problem with it was, but
and drawing to a close the story of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
The human, the personal identity of those characters, not the myth of them, not the cape and cowl, not the thing that sells tickets, but the human part of those characters, which I can see the argument of, especially in context of what Alan Moore is talking about, because if I could use an example like Thor is, and I'm talking about like the abstract Thor, not Marvel's Thor. Thor is a character that has existed in human history for a really, really, really long time. And to the point where lots of people have a different idea about the minutia of Thor. Maybe your Thor is the Marvel Thor, but maybe your Thor is God of War's Thor. Maybe your Thor is the more classic iteration of Thor. They're all Thor, and they all have the general hallmarks of what Thor is, but they're slightly different. The same way that Batman can be different to everybody, but there are still the core tenets of what makes a Batman story. That doesn't necessarily require it to be Bruce Wayne, or even the Bruce Wayne that you know. It only requires it to meet the qualifications of what Batman is, which we all know, and that the Dark Knight gave a clear foundation. That is why Alan Moore's so obsessed with the Dark Knight.
I'm trying to think of like modern, I guess, examples of this being done right. And the first thing that keeps jumping to my mind is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King. You know, Dan even in the chat brings up, you know, Tom King owes a lot to this thinking. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is a very definitive, out of time Supergirl story. That its goal is to tell a good Supergirl story, context of what the comics are, be damned. And it could exist anywhere, really. And honestly, and they're making a fucking movie out of it. So it's doing something right there.
I think I've always sort of followed this logic to a degree. I like to, especially with like Batman, I like to sort of make my own timeline as things come along. Like, you know, at a certain point, Hush and Batman Fugitive and Batman War Games all happen in one Bruce Wayne lifetime. But then at a certain point, it stops. You know, that version of Bruce Wayne is mine, but it's nobody else's. And it can keep going for other people.
Right. Like you have your own headcanon, I guess.
Yeah, headcanon, yeah.
It's funny when you bring it up. I don't think of DC in continuity, honestly. Like Marvel, I'm very strict on Marvel continuity in my mind. Like that is linear. With DC, it's like, oh, these are stories in my head.
I think I don't know if that's how DC has trained its audience to think, though.
Fair. And it could just be how I got into comics too with DC.
Yeah.
Like I got into Hush. I read Morrison's Batman. I was very cherry picky with getting into DC. So like that maybe dictates the puzzle in my head that is DC.
Yeah.
I also think Marvel works a lot harder to maintain their timeline.
Sure.
With the sliding time scale being almost atomic at this point. Dan Trudeau points out on Twitch that the universe is the foundation, not the characters.
Right, exactly. The myth of Marvel is the universe. The myth of DC is the characters. It's no surprise that Marvel does have to have a sliding scale because almost all of Marvel's characters' origins are rooted in a certain time.
Yep.
Whereas for DC, they're not. Superman's ship could have crash landed in any year. Doesn't even matter. That's why they can put it in Russia in Superman Red Sun. It doesn't matter where he landed.
Yeah.
Batman's parents could die watching Zorro, or they could die watching House Party. Matter what the movie was. Like it doesn't matter.
I want to see that book. Yeah. it's a Batman dies at a screening of Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking Shrek.
Hey now. You're an all-star.
I wanted to go over at least one more quote from Alan Moore because I think it underscores what we're talking about right now. And I love it so much because we forget that these people are geniuses. We forget that these people are magicians. And we forget how much they understand this stuff that we consume so readily and easily. So Moore said the following. And again, this is how we understand his mentality. Quote, as I mentioned in my introduction to Frank's Dark Knight, one of the things that prevents superhero stories from ever attaining the status of true modern myths of legends is that they are open-ended. An essential quality of a legend is that the events in it are clearly defined in time. Robin Hood is driven to become an outlaw by the injustices of King John and his minions. That is his origin. He meets Little John, Friar Tuck, and all the rest and forms the Merry Men. He wins a tournament in disguise. He falls in love with Maid Marian and thwarts the Sheriff of Nottingham. That is his career, including his love interest, major villains, and the formation of a superhero group that he is a part of. He lives to see the return of good King Richard and is finally killed by a woman, firing the last arrow to mark the place where he shall be buried. That is his resolution. You can apply the same paradigm to King Arthur, Davy Crockett, or Sherlock Holmes with equal success. You cannot apply it to most comic book characters because in order to meet the commercial demands of continuing series, they can never have a resolution. Indeed, they find it difficult to embrace any of the changes in life that the passage of time brings about for these very same reasons, making them finally less than fully human, as well as falling far short of the true myth. Pause. Where are we at with Spider-Man comics today?
Mary Jane is just his friend now.
Worse, his sister.
Spider-Man is stuck.
Yep.
We've seen it all.
Yep.
What happened between Spider-Man's origin and now that informs his end?
But you know where
we don't know because he doesn't have an end.
Ultimates
we don't know the ending.
Ultimates did, and then Miles came about, and it worked. You know, like
yeah.
So
this is exactly what I've been saying since day one of our podcast, and I've never been able to put my finger on why. And this is exactly it.
I think now your beard's going to start growing even faster now, Kel, because of this.
Yeah,
the mental link has been established. You're closest to him too, so the side effects are going to be greater.
Invest in hair ties.
So what it sounds like he's advocating for is Elseworlds. Elseworlds as the proper way of telling a story in a way, right?
Even just evolution.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess my interpretation is he's trying to provide a framework for how at least DC can have their cake and eat it too. How DC can provide the Dark Knight Returns of basically how the whole entire DC universe can get the Dark Knight Returns treatment. That is exactly what Twilight of the Gods is. And as we get deeper into this proposal over the coming weeks, you're going to understand exactly how I mean that. I'm not even saying that the proposal's good. I actually don't think DC would have ever published it. But I think that it's fascinating despite that, because it could have been reworked and it could have been made into something that would have been palatable for DC. The ask on Alan Moore's part is tremendous.
Sure.
Absolutely gargantuan. I shudder to even give you a hint, but I will give you one because I need you to understand how different this is. There is a storyline here, a piece of this proposal that is not very different from something that Jeff Loeb did in Ultimates 3 that involves Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch that everybody knows about.
Incest.
He goes far. He goes far.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a heavy book. It's a dark book. It's Alan Moore pulling no punches. I'm saying book. It's a proposal. The book never actually got released. But
I got a question.
Yeah.
With the proposal, does DC still have the rights of the proposal, and can they make this book?
Man, oh man, there is so much to talk about.
Okay, all right.
That's a huge part of it. Remember, I said this proposal was a battleground for Alan Moore and DC after 89, after he left. Because this story is so much bigger than you realize.
This could have been Watchmen 2.
Yeah. Oh, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
This makes me really want, and it's antithetical to Alan Moore, but like an Alan Moore biopic, you know?
Sure.
Just a creative man driven into being a jaded mess because of big business in a way.
Mm-hmm.
There's my screenplay I get to write. Here we go.
Get started. Dan says that's not what The Dark Knight was. It wasn't an ending in the future. It's an end to an older version of the character. Okay, so let's say that the language that we're using isn't appropriate. I'll reframe it.
Well, he was actually responding directly to C.W. Gordon, who said it sounds awfully like Zack Snyder's DC.
But I thought Dan had made that comment earlier that
he did. It's an ending for the Silver Age Batman set in the 80s.
Right. Let's put ourselves in the 80s. Okay?
Because this is code right here. Wait.
This is from the 80s, so let's get rid of our 2023 brains for a moment.
Gladly.
A story that shows Batman in the future, or Batman's ending, an older, grizzled Bruce Wayne, an older Superman, all these characters being aged, would be perceived by someone at that time as a future story for Batman. That's the perception. Reality or otherwise is really not relevant. What Alan Moore is trying to get at is that this is a definitive close for the Batman character. That's what he's trying to get at. And that it establishes a baseline from which future creators can work backwards from. Not that you even have to acknowledge it in any way. You shouldn't necessarily tease it out. But if you're lost, if you're like, well, what are the core tenets of Batman? Or what are the core tenets of this one and that one? Where do they go so that I know where they are, where they need to be? This is the point of reference.
Like, in case of emergency, introduce the mutants.
So that's kind of the idea. And being able to apply that across the board for all of DC. Which sounds like an impossible deal.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this. Regardless of what you think about what we're going to talk about in the future regarding how this shakes out, I think Alan Moore's plan was extremely ambitious and interesting, and it might have worked. It might have worked. I don't think DC would have allowed it to be published this way, but if they did, it might have worked. It's possible. So I think this is a good place to say pause on this story. It's fascinating. I can't wait to dive in further. In the coming weeks, we will be reading more from Alan's own words and parsing it out and, giving you guys our take on what this could have been. Let us know what you guys think. What do you think about Twilight of the Superheroes so far? What do you think about our coverage of it? Is this something that you're into?
I will say, event name, that could have been punched up.
I guess. I think it has a when you hear it, it sounds familiar already.
I guess
I think
so.
it's always
maybe because of where I am in time. Fair. Okay.
And Twilight of the Gods is a real thing that he was playing off of. And when you hear what the Twilight of the superhero story was, it's definitely the Ragnarok of DC Comics. Like,
it had quippy dialogue and Mark Ruffalo?
Not that Ragnarok.
Oh, okay. All right, got it.
Not that one. Not that one. So yeah, let us know your thoughts about this coverage. Do you want to hear more about the Twilight of the superheroes? I love doing stuff like this. I get a lot of joy out of, trying to piece together all this different kind of stuff. So let us know what you think about it.
I want to hear about it. So we'll be doing it next week.
Man, if Kale's excited for an episode.
I know, right? That's always encouraging.
Sean's been fucking killing it. The 5G files, what did we do last week? The
Dan
Didio thing. Fucking come on.
Thanks. I appreciate that, dude. We appreciate you for listening. Don't forget that Geoff Johns is returning on April 1st. It's not a joke. It's not an April Fool's joke. You will not show up here on April 1st and see Tyler doing his best Geoff Johns. That's not going
now. You might now.
No, you won't, because if you do, that might anger our guest, the real Geoff Johns.
And also, we might not have a Tyler after that. So
right, yeah, that might be the end of things. So show up for that, of course, April 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, if you would like to take part in our Geoff Johns Geiger giveaway, those are very simple. Just be a subscriber on YouTube and a follower on Twitch. Patrons get +2 entries simply by being patrons. Submit your question for Geoff anywhere you can. We prefer it through Gmail, or rather through email. Email us at thecomicspals@gmail.com.
It's contact@thecomicspals.com now.
Either work, and I never checked that other one.
It forwards. It's fine. Yeah.
DMs are okay. All that stuff's okay. Discord messages are okay. We'll see them. You just have to make sure you're a subscriber and a follower, YouTube and Twitch. And we'll ask Geoff Johns questions. We'll randomize everybody's names that are entered, and the winner will get a brand spanking new copy of Geiger. So that's what we'll be doing.
One thing too, if you're emailing us, let us know your handle places, because your email might not necessarily be your handle. It just helps us keep track of who's who.
Big time. Yeah, big time. That's probably going to be the hardest part of all this, quite frankly. So help us out as much as you can with that. Patreon.com/thecomicspals for as little as $3 a month. You can help us out, and you get access to some pretty cool content. Book club voting. Strange Adventures is out on Tuesday the 7th. You get a shout out on the show, as you heard earlier. You get our newsletter. You get so much for so little. And we appreciate everybody who decides to make that choice. Twitch and YouTube live every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern for this very show. 6 p.m. Eastern Thursdays for Pals Polls. If you want to have a say in what we read on Pals Polls, vote in the Twitter listener poll, which will be up after this show. There will be 4 choices for you to choose from. If you want to influence what the choices are, leave us a comment with a book you are looking forward to, and if we like it, we'll add it to the poll. Join our Discord server with us. Continue the conversations that start on this podcast. For everything else, at the Comics Pals, all over social media. Hit up our store. The Streamlabs store. There's a link to it in the description. There's a link to it in the chat right now. So hit it up.
Bios as well going forward.
If you buy anything, let us know. Show it off. Send us a picture of you with the mug or the shirt or whatever you get. We'd love to see it.
And if you buy it while we're live, there's a little alert that plays. So people can see what you bought if you choose to let that happen.
Absolutely. Right. That is totally up to you. There is no cost requirement for being a part of this party. Just not being a douche. Plugs. Kale, you're up.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Comics Pals. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TotoInTow. That's TOTOINTOW. You can find my work at kaleward.com. That's CALEWARD.com. On Instagram, you can see me and Marco. Marco came to Liverpool this weekend, and we went to the History of Music Museum in Liverpool, and you can see us skanking. And if you want a preview of what my backflip is going to look like, there it is.
I should mention, I haven't done a great job about this, but we are actually less than 40 subscribers away on YouTube from 1,000. Kale will have to do a backflip. Kale's counting that number down. It's actually 37 now, Kale.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's getting closer. So once we hit 1,000 subs on YouTube, guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. Trust and believe that. So I'm really hoping we get there before Geoff Johns joins the show.
Cool.
So let's make that happen. Tyler, plugs.
You could follow me at the Tyler Olson on Instagram and Twitter. I'm doing action figure reviews. Orb coming out Monday. I also recorded ones for Wonder Man and the Blob. So those just need to be edited and put out.
Sick.
Yeah. I'll do the Dark Phoenix one eventually. I just keep forgetting to do that one.
Oh, how is that the one you're forgetting?
Because it's in the nice packaging and I don't really want to take it out. But you know.
That's fair. Is that possible to get anymore?
Yeah, it's on Amazon still. They're like, it's actually discounted on Amazon now. So screw me, I guess. I'll send you. I got you.
I need a companion for this one.
Yeah. Very jarrable.
Wait, why would I put my?
Don't look it up. Don't look up Rainbow Dash jar. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, as for me, Instagram at Sean Soapbox. I am very excited for tomorrow's AEW pay-per-view.
Oh,
that should be a lot of fun.
You're the only one, apparently.
I'm excited to watch it. I don't actually think the card is that good, but nothing is more exciting to me than pay-per-views in wrestling.
That tag team fatal four-way, it's like, whoa, whose 2K game went too far, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of missing FTR. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Excited for The Last of Us. Excited for Geoff Johns. Excited for the Comics Pals. Thank you so much for